So, Joe, we're here at Freshfields. We just had a great lunch with the American European Business Association. We talked a lot about the domestic situation around the election and what's going to drive the outcome. But one of the things we did focus on was the impact globally, and particularly here in Europe. Obviously, the Kamala Harris potential is going to be more status quo, even though she wants to be seen as a change agent. But with Trump, particularly if he takes the House and the Senate as well, it could be quite a radical impact internationally. Can you just give a quick sense of what we talked about on that?
Well, Thorold, look, once again, we're in a US presidential election which is absolutely on a knife edge. We have all these elections now which are basically 50-50. The last two elections were decided by a few tens of thousands of votes in a few states. All the polling indicates this one's going to be just as close. Maybe one candidate has an advantage or maybe the other, but with 6 weeks to go, it's too close to call. And it matters enormously for everything. It matters as domestic policy, of course, for the United States. It matters for Americans. But it has enormous ramifications for everybody around the world. Not only, of course, what happens in America, but what America's approach will be to the rest of the world. And I do think that is one of the key differences between the two candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It's their approach to the rest of the world. Donald Trump, I think, if he wins, will, even more than he did in his first term, pursue an America first approach, both in economic policy, which means you can expect to see more protectionism for America. That means more tariffs. He had tariffs in his first term against China and some others. This time he's promising to implement tariffs across the board against products from all around the world. So real kind of trade war stuff if he makes good on that promise. And on national security, again, very much an America first approach where America looks out takes a much narrower view of its own self-interest, of its own national interest, rather than contributing to the defense perhaps of other countries, of other allies. It's going to be looking very closely at where it needs to shore up its own national security, and that's obviously with regards to things like immigration, but also crucially on questions of that really affect Europeans, on NATO, the future of NATO, the future of the war in Ukraine. But more broadly, I think, again, Europeans and the rest of the world will have to get used to, if Trump wins, a more assertive American approach. Whereas I think Harris, if she wins, there will be pressures in the same direction, but she'll follow more of this. You can expect roughly more of the same that we've seen from Joe Biden, more cooperation, more collaboration. There won't be, they'll probably continue the tariffs on China, but I don't expect sort of a broader trade war under Harris. And I expect continued support for NATO, continued support for Ukraine. So I think that is a pretty strong divergence between the two candidates.